Hey Reed, what's up, dude? This is Tuesday, not Monday, which might be a tradition we developed. I always appreciate your patience, and I even more appreciate your impressive handyman ability. Dude, changing out a toilet is A, disgusting, and B, very impressive. If someone would need like a good conversation, maybe an essay written, possibly a talk to one of your church groups or parent groups, I'm your guy. Get me in there, right? But let's have good conversations. Let's do workshops together. Let's do that, man. I'm the dude you call in. But if there's a toilet to be exchanged, if there's a light fixture to be fixed, if there's a tree to cut down, I got people on the phone. I got people I'm calling in, bro. I got people that are coming in to help me with that. I'm good at those phone calls. I'm good at those connections. Let me tell you what I'm thinking about today. There's a book that I've been reading. I think a lot of people are reading right now, but I would encourage other parents to read, A, to get the reactions, and B, because I think it has some pretty good information in it. And it's called The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. One of the things the reason why I'm so impressed with the book and so I feel like it's so vital is because it's based on not just like anecdotal evidence or general feelings about things, but it's based on evidence about the teenagers that we're currently dealing with and the teens that that just passed that are now in their early 20s are working through what is just like kind of an anxiety and depression crisis, more so than previous generations of people those ages. Anxiety and depression is something that teenagers have often dealt with. But in 2012, the data shows that there was a spike in the intensity and the amount of kids that were experiencing anxiety and depression. The book, The Anxious Generation, kind of correlates that and finds evidence that the reason for that was the rise of smartphones and then specifically the rise of social media. The way that I've always approached these things is like I'm not terrified of technology, right? Like I don't think that like we should be overwhelmed and just like reject technology as a whole. But I do think that one of the things that we've been talking about in our pod is this idea of like fears and managing those fears and how to work through it and what things we protect our kids from versus things that they need to go through themselves. And one of the things that seems really, really obvious from the data that is presented inside of this book is that social media and just generally the access to like unfettered access to the internet is really damaging to young people, right? In a lot of different ways. You can understand the reasons why, right? Like people could get to them and access to them, could say things to them that's not unsupervised, could be really, really awful. They could access things that are inappropriate for their ages. There's all kind of different really like kind of scary things. But what the book goes further in is that there's actually a connection to parenting. Right? So the parenting connection is that when I have a cell phone with me from the time I'm 10 years old all the way up until, the rest of my adulthood, during those formative years of middle school and high school, if my connection to my parent is constant, I can text them in every moment. I can get to them at any time and they can get to me always during school, during church, during when I'm far away, when I'm gone. What it creates is like kind of a reliance and a belief that like I'm never alone, which in some ways sounds like, well, that's great, right? We're always supervising our kids. But the flip side is like generations before that and forever have worked through those scenarios that they didn't necessarily have to constantly be managed by their parents, right? And now the response in this is like, well, they're going to get in trouble if that generations before that did. The reality is what we see is that they're still getting in trouble, but just in new ways. And they don't believe that they have any ability to manage those things on their own because they constantly have to like have their parents come in and kind of save them. And so it's kind of this interesting like new way of looking at things that has been really unhelpful to that generation of kind of unfettered access to the internet and constant connection to the phone, and then are like a pulled back on the ability to kind of be in the world by themselves, even at kind of a younger age, which most of us in our generation experience, right? And I don't necessarily mean like extreme, like constantly gone from my house for hours and hours at home, but I did grow up in a neighborhood in multiple neighborhoods where we would ride our bikes around and like kind of connect. And I didn't have connection to my mom and dad during that time, right? I would have to manage those situations with my peers and then come home, or like when people would have, hard moments at school or someone made fun of them or they got a bad grade on their test, like that wasn't like they didn't have access to their parents to come pick them up and save the day from them. They just had to kind of manage it through that. And what the anxious generation says is that those skills are important for development, and that we're taking those skills and those opportunities away from kids to develop those skills. And that so we lean into screens and we lean into opportunities to protect them through the phone, but that those things are actually really damaging and they really hurt them. So I'd encourage you to go and read that, or like to consider it, to look at it from your perspective and see what's right. I have no like desire to tell you that what you should do with your kid with their phone and their cell phone, but I think it's worthy for us to consider these things as a whole. Good to see you, Reed. See you soon, buddy.